Hi, this is Will Johnston and my colleague
Andrew Staton.
I invite you to join us on this special DVD edition of Bruce Lee's The Big Boss. We'll be taking you through and sharing some of the ideas and background to the movie and some of the incidents that we've uncovered in our research over the years. This is the Fortune Star release.
Yeah, this is the second company that's taken over from Media Asia. Of course, the original Golden Harvest logo, not the original Golden Harvest logo, that's the second one.
The movie, of course, was released to the Chinese market as Tongsang Daihing, which translates roughly as the brother from the Big Mountain. It also had the title in the USA of Fists of Fury. This was actually an incident where the names on the cans were swapped in transit. Originally, the film would have been called The Chinese Connection to tie in with the movie's French Connection of that era. And unfortunately, the names on the cans were swapped. And so this movie became Fist of Fury, and the second film that Bruce Lee released as Fist of Fury picked up the name Chinese Connection.
Sorry, go on.
Bruce signed to this film via a Hong Kong producer called Raymond Chow in June of 1971, and he was signed to film the movie entirely on location in Thailand. You've got to say, Andrew?
Yeah, I was just saying that it's different. The opening sequences are slightly different in different countries, and I think this is a different version yet again. I think the music's different as well.
What might not be obvious to people watching the movie who've even maybe seen it before is that there isn't actually any ferry in the area of Pak Chon, which is the village where most of the location scenes were filmed for this movie. And this ferry is probably 50 kilometres west of Pak Chon in an area called Atuya on the Mekong River, which is the original ancient capital of Thailand. Also, it's not immediately obvious that we're in Thailand. There's no real temples in the background. We saw a very brief glimpse there of a Buddhist monk coming off the ferry, but other than that, it could be any generic area, even within China itself. Here we see the Bruce Lee character Chen Chao-an travelling from his family home in China, accompanied by his uncle, to join family and relatives in Thailand to work in an ice factory. And here we get the first glimpse of Nora Malkesu, who was one of the starlet actresses for Golden Harvest at the time. She was aged about 19 when she filmed this scene as a nice lolly lady. She was brought in by the film's second director. The original director, Gasson, was originally replaced after 5 days by a man called Lo Wei, and he had already signed Nora to a film previous to The Big Boss called Invincible 8, and so brought her in as a guest star while she visited the set and met Bruce Lee formally. Here we see a scene with some of the local gangsters, I suppose you would describe them, just colourful characters.
Hoodlums,
just causing hassle, and Bruce Lee appears to be about to react, and here's one of the plot devices that were built into the film, where the uncle pulls out a jade talisman. In the film, Bruce had made a promise to his mother, based on filial piety, the shui, that he would obey all of his mother's intentions, that he wouldn't fight in the future. And so he's unable to intervene and help the child, not realising that this child is actually a family relative that he's about to come and live with. It's one of the few incidents of a child in a Bruce Lee film, other than a later movie Enter the Dragon with Lau. Children didn't feature very strongly in Bruce Lee films. And here we get to see the first entry of the co-star of the movie, James Tien Chun, who was also one of the contract stars for the Golden Harvest Company from this period. You'll probably note the choreography here is very different from choreography you would see when Bruce Lee fights later on. Very much the swinging arm, one camera angle technique. James Tien was very successful in Hong Kong up until quite recently, still making films, and went on to have a successful career.
His film that did very well after Bruce Lee had died was Seven Coffins.
One thing you'll note as they run around the edge of the roadway here as Chen Chao and his uncle follow, look at the top left, see how many hundreds of people are there viewing the action. Literally hundreds all lined up watching the fight take place.
Yeah, the cinema, a lot of this was cut out. You can
see there's hundreds there literally stood in the top left-hand corner of the screen watching the action as Bruce Lee walks round. Obviously on a film set now it would be a closed set, there'd be nobody allowed to view the action. Here you see on the left there hundreds of children again.
Yeah.
So we get the first meeting of James Chan's character Xu Xian with Bruce Lee's character Chen Chao-an. And Xu Xian really takes the lead for this film for the first really 30-40 minutes of the movie. We get our first look at the family group. This is Tony Au, Lam Chin Yin, who played in the Mr. Vampire series. We saw Billy Chan there, and then Ah Kun, played by Lee Kwan.
The Chinese basically was showing the kind of working conditions that actually happened when they went away from Hong Kong and worked outside, and was typical of this type of movie at the time.
This is the actress Yi Yi, or Maria Yi. She was also one of the contract players for Golden Harvest at the time. She took the lead in this movie, The Big Boss, and then in Fist of Fury, the roles were reversed and the lady selling the ice lollies took the lead and Maria Yi took the supporting role. She features as a type of love interest, although, to be perfectly frank, in 1971, it's a fairly tame scenario. Well, here we see Bruce turning on the charm for her.
You got an estimate of how old she was there?
She would have been around 19.
19. One of the great Bruce Lee expressions there, you know.
You'll notice on Bruce's finger that he had a sticking plaster. He'd had an unfortunate accident washing a glass off set, and wrote to his wife off the set, "I'm writing rather poorly due to my hand. It's getting much better now, taking my vitamin pills, but I'm now down to 128 pounds in weight." So he'd cut his hand on this glass and required 10 stitches. Here we get a look at the main event of the movie. Most of the scenes are set around this ice factory, which serves as the main plot, which is that hidden within this ice is packets of heroin used for drug smuggling.
It's quite interesting that the ice factory or the building still exists in Pakchong today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Featured strongly in the film Dragon. They used a set similar to this to recreate these scenes. So we see Chen Chao-an's character arriving at the ice factory to join with his cousins and start work.
Tien definitely is the main lead at the first part of the movie, and I think, well, you can definitely say that.
This is the first real clue that we get that the all is not what it seems in the ice factory. This manager and the son of the boss, it's an actor called Lau Wing, or Tony Liu, plays the boss's son. And here he is urging him to make no mistakes with the next delivery. And they pass money between them. This is one of the main protagonists of the film, eyeing up the Bruce Lee character Chen Chao-an as he passes.
Chen seems to definitely lead here, don't you think, Will?
I think Xu Xian, yeah, James Tien character takes a lead up until the Bruce Lee character begins to fight. I think there was some doubt at the time that Bruce was signed to the movie whether he could carry an action film. He'd been a child actor in Hong Kong and made 18 childhood films, but none of those were action films. So there was some doubt in people's minds whether he could carry an action role, and so James Tien really was taking the lead. I think once people saw Bruce in action, I think that those doubts were removed and the weight shifted towards the Bruce Lee character. Bruce had written from his hotel in the New Wan Chai Hotel in Bangkok to Linda, his wife Linda Lee. It's been 15 days since my arrival, and it seems already like years due to the lack of meat. I have to get canned meat for lunch. I'm glad to have brought along my vitamins. So he really was struggling in the conditions. It was July, August of 1971, very hot conditions. The area of Patchon is on the edge of a national park, Hoye Park, and I think cockroaches and lizards were a staple of the carpeting around the floors of the hotel.
This is a typical thing of unfortunate to the Chinese custom. Is definitely gambling is make money quick, and definitely is something that the Chinese culture understands very, very well. This leads, of course, to unscrupulous gambling houses, robbing people.
This film was later remade, featuring Ah Kun, who, played by Lee Kwan, as a movie called Skyhawk, with the Wong Fei-hung star. The Skyhawk was made in 1974.
Oh, right. That was starred Carter Wong, didn't it? I remember Carter Wong were in it.
Many of the scenes, especially internal scenes, were shot back in Bangkok, and so it's sometimes difficult to recognise where it would have been Patchon and where it would have been shot in Bangkok. This is one of the few early scenes where Bruce gets an opportunity to fight, although he's already the ice lolly scene proved that he's unable to do that because of the jade talisman. Here he's led into a position where he has no choice but to fight. And sadly, most of the later scenes surrounding this were cut. You'll see very shortly that Bruce will help James Tien's character, Xu Shen, by double fisting a couple of the thugs that attack them. But then it cuts to a sunset scene. In the original movie, the Mandarin film, the two were then escorted to an alleyway and followed by the thugs, and a cart of burning coals was sped toward them, and they needed to jump onto a nearby wall to escape them.
Yeah, the photos of the barbed wire are there, and the evidence is there. It's just you never get to see it.
And then when they return back to the family home, they explain to the family, or in a way I imagine the Xu Shen character is bragging to the family of how they managed to overcome these thugs. And again, that scene is cut in most of the prints that we now see. Sadly lost are the Mandarin versions.
Yeah. I think the Mandarin version was only shown once, wasn't it?
I think it was shown in 1979 at the a convention in London.
Yeah.
So here we see one of the few mattress sleeps that Bruce Lee does in the film. Something he disliked doing, but went along with, I think, really to save argument at the time. I think it's something he regretted in later years. So at this point, it would cut to them walking down the alleyway, and the cart would be seen. Unfortunately, we won't see that scene.
There's not much evidence of it, barring from a few photos in certain places. That's the sunset, and that's it, really.
There was some speculation that the non-Marie Yi character was watching Chen Chao-an and his uncle leave the family home. If you notice, they're not there now, present in this family group. We now see them at the ferry terminal. But it's really just speculation. So this is the last time we see the uncle character. He now leaves the film. And Bruce Lee's left to fend for himself in Patchon.
This talisman that you see, this circle of jade, is a very common talisman that you can buy in Hong Kong all over the place. And it's a lucky charm, and if it gets broken, of course, the good luck's gone. And later on you'll see what happens with that. But very common, and if you go to Hong Kong, you can definitely buy the piece of jade.
Bruce wrote to Linda at the time, "I miss you a lot, but Patchon is no place for you or the children. It's an absolute underdeveloped village with a big nothing." So I don't think Bruce was really enjoying his stay, but at the same time, it was something he felt he had to do. These are a series of rapids nearby to Patchon, the Moon River. These still exist today, virtually unchanged, I think used by canoeists.
I think somebody just went there not so long ago and put some pictures of it on the internet, and it's exactly the same as it was. The little weir here is still there, so anybody visiting would be able to find it.
Here we see the Lao Wang really being quite a sleazy character. Quite unlike the character he played later on in both roles in Fist of Fury, where he supported Bruce Lee's character, Way the Dragon. He was a great support for Bruce Lee's character, and also TV roles that he played. So really his early role here was quite out of step with where his career would lead. Quite risque for the time, and unmarried cousins having contact from 1971. Remember, this was the year of free love and the hippies. Really quite risque, but for us now very tame.
Tony was the only one that actually has been in all 4 Bruce Lee movies. Is that right?
As a character,
yeah.
Some of the stuntmen featured in all 4, as we'll see very shortly. Well, now we see the Chen Chao-an character actually starting work at the ice factory. This is his first day on the job. And he gets to meet the foreman, this Thai character Chow Chen, playing the foreman. His one and only film role, apparently. Bruce wrote at the time, "My voice is going very hoarse from yelling and talking under really terrible conditions, machines running, ice cutting, etc." Luckily, with it being a dubbed film, it didn't really matter. It wasn't his own voice that was used.
I remember watching this a long time ago, and the quality was absolutely appalling. Out of focus, and you couldn't see anything, and it was dreadful. And looking at the screen today, it's absolutely gorgeous what the technology has done. And it's quite funny that he actually goes here and he calls him, in the old dubbed version, a stubborn ox. It's quite funny. It's fairly well paced, his Big Boss. To say it's his first movie, it's very well done, and you could see that it was definitely something that the Chinese people had never seen before, and they were just sort of like foddered with the old kung fu movies, and then suddenly they got this, and it was just like, whoa.
Bruce had actually had a back injury the previous year and was taking cortisone injections for a bad back, so here he's kind of taking risks with his health. You can see a batten screwed to the edge of this chute to force this ice off the edge to move the plot along. So we can see that the cache of drugs hidden in the ice. And we see Chin Wang finding the drugs, much to their cost. And Bruce comes down to investigate what the fuss is, and gets punished for his troubles.
Something I wouldn't do. Doesn't let him do it a second time.
And again, some rather hawky wire leaps there, but really quite tame by the standards of the time, the swordplay films from this era. And I suppose quite recently, Crouching Tiger.
Yeah.
Feature very much the same type of techniques now, so they're coming back into favour, I imagine.
Yeah. It's quite funny, at one time people who got really into Bruce Lee always wanted the grandad vests, because Bruce wore one in Big Boss. They were going, "Oh, I must have a shirt like Bruce Lee's."
The original director, Gus San, apparently was bad-tempered and unprofessional, and so the lady who'd signed Bruce Lee, Lo Wei's wife, Li Wang Ha, phoned Raymond Chow back in Hong Kong, and they had the director replaced by Lo Wei, who just happened to be her wife, her husband, shall I say. Here we see Ah Wang and Ah Chan being invited to the manager's office so they can find out just what they do and don't know about the cache of drugs.
Yeah. You see, you know, the kind of very small amount of food they get, typical Chinese food, prepared, and, you know, saying, oh, well, we'll save some for the, you know, our brothers that have, they'll be coming back later. There's a typical Chinese word that you should all learn, mgoi.
Oh, thank you.
That's exactly what it means.
So we see the manager trying to bribe Archie and Ah Wang over their discovery, and to their cost, they don't really take the hint. Far too honest for their own good.
I think the actor in the middle there, he went to make an awful lot of movies in Hong Kong. He turned up at one of the Bruce Lee events in Hong Kong. If you remember that, as a sort of, most of the time you see these scenes, these always filled in the sort of the plot line, didn't they, to build up for what was always going to happen. And
well, Lo Wei worked on films before this for Golden Harvest. He did The Invincible 8 with Nora Mao, and James Chen. He also did The Angry River, releases before Invincible 8. He was great at this dark style of movie making.
Because we're building up to a quite a horrific scene, aren't we? Really. I mean, I remember. I think when I was watching this, I wasn't really prepared for what was really going to happen next. And also, this movie is the one that is the only one that actually heavily relies on knives. It was definitely a knife culture. I don't know if that was showing. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, well, prior to this, all of Bruce's action TV work had included use of nunchuck or rice flail, and this one he doesn't use any weapon other than the knife.
Yeah, I don't know if that was something that was influenced from Thai, but it was all knives and hatchets and stuff. And I remember getting to this scene, and I thought, oh, what are they going to do here? And you just thought, oh, they're going to put him in ice. And then you see this, and you're thinking, oh, this looks interesting, and then you realise what they're going to do.
In the Mandarin print, this is very graphic. Lo Wei does a really good job here of building the tension with the cutaways and the tracking shot and the saw blade. Personally, it's graphic enough for me in this version, but I'm sure we all get the message that
I think
the cousins end up in the ice.
I think that it's sort of like all these cutaways actually do sort of like let you know what's happening. I don't know, is this bit cut, do you think, a little bit?
This is definitely edited, yeah. In one of this Mandarin versions we see the body parts being placed into the blocks.
Oh, wow.
So we have the family group now wondering where the cousins have gone, Ah Wang and Ah Chin. And so Xu Sheng goes to ask Chow Chen, the foreman, where everybody is, and doesn't really get very far at all. What becomes apparent in this conversation now between Xu Sheng and the manager is that a previous family member, Uncle Wang, had apparently disappeared He's very careless of the family to lose a family member and not be still looking for him, but we won't really examine that any further.
I always found it interesting that they always find a young wife. He's found a young wife that's worn him out.
That's right. In the English dub, the manager does say that you've got your facts mixed up, Shu. Uncle Wang went to find a wife. No postcard or anything, how could he?
No. I think it was, young wife demands a lot of energy. May have died from something like that.
It's quite strange, really. This character of the manager really causes most of the mayhem in the early sections of the film, and yet when Bruce Lee's character takes his revenge, it's generally on the higher up the food chain with the boss himself, Sammy, played by An Yin-gip. And this guy seems to escape any of the fury from Bruce's fists.
Yeah, I never thought that. He's actually vanishes, doesn't he? Just
pretty much after the third act, yeah. This Shu Shen really just examining. You see on the right there, Lam Ying Chin, who had a very successful career. He features in Fist of Fury. He's the guy that Bruce eloquently stabs in both eyes with his fingers. And here we actually get our first look at the Sammy, the boss, An Yin-gip, or An Yin-che, his Mandarin name, who served as the choreographer on the movie. He would have been about 44 when he made this film. And really any difference in style between the fights is quite evident between watching him now here, fighting under his own choreography, and then later when he fights the Bruce Lee character. But the finale battle, very much a different style of fighting. It was Han Yin-gip who introduced this type of effect of using trampolines when he worked at Shaw Brothers. He was originally from Shantung and was a member of the Peking Opera, as was Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, and then worked for Shaw Brothers as one of their main choreographers, and also doubling for some of the matinee idols of that era before moving to Golden Harvest.
The martial arts tends to be a little bit weaker here. I mean, later martial arts these days is a lot more power and the kicks are more fluid and stuff like that, where if you look at the fights that's just gone by, it's been, when Tony was doing it was very, very sloppy, and, it's only later on when Bruce comes along that it seems to get a bit sharper, really.
You can see the actresses looking for off-screen prompts as to how they're supposed to react. So they're rather lacklustre in their payment of actresses, I imagine, at the time.
I always found it was the first time I'd ever seen any massaging by thumping up and down on the shoulders, and it's quite interesting, but it is actually done quite a lot of the time, and it does work. So
I won't examine how you know that, Andrew.
Yeah. But yeah, the house that you're actually seeing is still there as well. It's not as in good repair as you see it there, but again,
sadly it's rumoured to be a mausoleum.
I don't know about that.
Not that palatable. I don't think really that the Chinese crew knew that at the time they were there. I think they found that out in retrospect. I think it would have been bad luck. That's Peter Chan Lung, one of the great Hong Kong stuntmen.
Oh yeah.
He later appears famously in Fist of Fury as the taller of the two Japanese henchmen with the Afghan hound haircut. Bruce stuffs paper into his mouth. We are not sick men. You'll remember that scene from Fist of Fury.
Yeah.
That's Peter Chan.
He had a dreadful wig on, didn't he?
Absolutely, the white Afghan hound. Yeah. And in Enter the Dragon, he's the guy that Bruce triple kicks to the face in the finale courtyard scene, while one of the karateka looks on, laughing. So we see Shu Shen rather overconfidently trying to face down Sammy, the big boss.
Can I just bring in there that music? Wasn't that Pink Floyd, or am I just dreaming?
It did sound a little bit like Pink Floyd's Time.
Right.
So this is indeed a redubbed version. I think this would have been redubbed in 1981. I think they also used some King Crimson. Wang Fu Lin re-recorded this in 1981 using Pink Floyd's Time and King Crimson, Lark's Tongue in Aspic, apparently.
Oh, right. So anybody into Pink Floyd gets a little bit of a taster there.
That's Billy Chan there on the left, RB, who features quite heavily in a recent documentary dragon since 1973. He features regularly in the Bruce Lee films, again Fist of Fury, and also in The Dragon.
I also seem to feel this was under the house. Seemed to be, when they're coming down the stairs.
Well, it was one continuous trolley shot, as you saw them going around through the hallway. It's one of the reasons they used this mausoleum, because they were able to get long continuous shots that they wouldn't have been able to achieve in a Hong Kong environment. Rather tightly squeezed in housing there.
This was typical, and in this version you can kind of understand it quite well, and it comes across well with the Cantonese or Mandarin, whichever it's dubbed in.
You get the intensity, don't you, of the acting role. I mean, James Chen...
But when you had the old dubbing, it's, like, I'm going to beat him up, and that sort of like...
Rather hawky.
Yeah.
James Chen later appeared with Bruce in Game of Death, but it wasn't really apparent how extensive his role was until John Little revealed this in the Warrior's Journey documentary. So here we see the exit for the Xu Shan RP characters.
Yeah, again, a typical sort of like kung fu fight on the traditional side, and Chen was still playing that role. So this was what the usual Chinese audience were used to.
Again, choreographed by Ian Gipp, and the swinging arm techniques and the still camera angle tend to bear this out.
For England, I think this was one of the first times that we'd seen an awful lot of weapons being used in a martial arts fight. You might notice that they are, of course, rubber or things like that, and it's just sound effects that makes those noises.
These were actually intended for the Mandarin market, and the actors on screen, while speaking Cantonese, tried to get a feel of what the Mandarin script would have been. So this is something Bruce Lee had discussed, even though he didn't speak Mandarin. He tried to make his Cantonese speech match roughly or what he thought the dubbing for the script would have been in Mandarin. Prior to that, in the early 1950s, most films had been filmed in Cantonese. That was a censored scene in the original Mandarin print. Blood flowed like a tap from James Chen's head.
Yeah, it was a quite a prolific blood flow, which
I think you described it as Monty Python.
Yeah, it was a kind of Monty Python thing where the arms fell off and it spurted out, and it's just like a big fountain of blood that comes out of. It would be nice to have seen how they actually special effect.
The classic axe in the back pad there on Billy Chan.
I think I was sort of like feeling a bit queasy when I first saw that.
Really?
Yeah. That shot there is always used, and I remember seeing that shot where Chen's flying through the air, and they say it's Bruce Lee, and it's James Chen. It's quite funny.
We see the end of the Xu Shan character for the film, and so unfortunately Xu ends up in the ice as well. And obviously the family are concerned.
If you look at Bruce at the head, I mean, I don't know if this is one of the shots with the bandage or not the bandage. It's I suppose you could spend half the movie just looking. I think that's there's the bandage. I think it's there. I can see it. Or is it? I can't see it. Oh.
Quite a nice display of Bruce's acting talent here, because it's a wordless scene. He manages to convey mostly what he's thinking, which is always a good sign of a cinematic actor, which I don't think people appreciate that he was. He had a great deal of experience in childhood films of Hong Kong from the period. As I say, they were filmed with the Cantonese live soundtrack, and that practice stopped during the 60s for Shaw Brothers when the Mandarin soundtracks began to replace them. And now I think we're back to the Cantonese dubs with the current crop of Hong Kong films. So there we see Lam Yin Chin on the left with Tony Au, great. Sadly, no longer with us. He went on to star in the guy in the purple shirt there, the second guy, Mr. Vampire series. It's very successful. That incidentally was produced by Li Liang Hua, wife of the current director of this film, Lo Wei. So obviously the family are very concerned. The disappearance now of 4 family members. And Marie's character really quite distraught. Bruce wrote at the time, except for the rotten hours, day and night shooting. Hong Kong Film Company is nice to work with, so I think things were starting to look up slightly for Bruce.
This was his sort of like debut movie, wasn't it, really? I mean, he couldn't... You know, he'd done all his Hollywood stuff and got stumped, hadn't he, really, so...
Some nice body acting there from Bruce. You know, he's able to convey his emotion. We can't even see his face, just all from arm movements. So it really was quite a good cinematic actor. Yeah, that same sunset scene, stock footage there.
Yeah, you've seen that in a few kung fu movies. The typical sort of like Chinese wear that she's got on.
There were rumours at the time that Bruce had had a challenge match with a Thai boxer somewhere around the Patchon area. Never really borne out by anything that has come out from his family. But apparently the Thai boxers told Bruce if he worked hard on his kicks, he'd be able to take on any boxer in Thailand. I'm not sure that Bruce needed to kick any harder than he did, really.
Not really.
Lam Min Chin sadly passed away now, but our Kun Lee Kwan's still with us. He met his wife on the set of The Big Boss.
Oh, right.
She came to ask for an autograph, asked for Mr. Lee, and Bruce came out. It was actually Lee Kwan she was after. And they ended up getting married.
Oh, right.
And Bruce said to him, "You didn't woo your wife, she wooed you."
Didn't they meet at... didn't they meet him at Kai Tak Airport that time?
I'm not sure, I think it was on the set of the film.
All right.
They were, I think, back in Atiyah, where the ferry terminal was set. And so I think what tends to happen is when we've got these location scenes for this ferry location, we tend to see shots of Nora Malkesu, this lady here. In the pan and scan version of these movies, we tend not to see Bruce. He tends to be cut from this shot. We see his fists poking into the mid-screen there, and we see Nora full screen. So it's nice to be able to see the full interaction between the two characters. That's the last time we see her in the film. Goes on to star in both Fist of Fury and Way of the Dragon with Bruce Lee. Now the Chen character really is starting to worry. Matters are deteriorating now. The workers demand action over where these missing men are. So the tension is starting to build now, and I now get the feeling whether or not the Bruce Lee character will actually begin to fight. Tony Howe also appeared in a TV version or remake of Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury, along with the ubiquitous Bay Logan as the Chekhov character.
Good old Bay.
Old Bay.
Well, same age as us, I suppose. A bit younger, maybe a bit younger than us as well.
So they are all waiting for the word that never comes. And things just go from bad to worse. Bruce's Cheng Chow, very restrained, hanging back by the temple area there, little shrine. And the manager just basically blames the boss. It's all Sammy's fault, and he phoned for them, and I'm sure they'll turn up eventually. And a tale that's wearing thin now with the family.
I think we're sort of like, he's trying to pacify him. And the interest is still there. I mean, you're thinking, oh, they're going to come up with something, he's going to do something, but you just don't know what. You see the shrine there.
Yeah.
And Bruce stood by the shrine, and this picture is well seen all over. There's beautiful shots of Bruce by the shrine and the table. Even today, that shot is a beautiful shot.
So they've been urged to return to work, something they're not willing to do, obviously, in Chen Chao.
Keep an eye on what Bruce is doing here, you know. Again, you know, you see everybody else shouting and arguing, but, you know, Bruce is not in the shot at the moment. You know, it's...
Well, it hasn't been described as still in the eye of the storm. You'll see lots of on-screen movement, and Bruce just remains still, but still draws your attention.
So you see a lot of the action. I mean, you know, it's there. You see Bruce is getting, but there you go. There's the talisman.
Antonio opens the gambit, and mayhem ensues. So again, very much a mixture of high and gip choreography was present during this fight scene, even though he's not featuring himself. Behind the scenes shots show that he was on the set. But whenever Bruce began to fight, he took over his own choreography. Remember, Bruce was really trying to make an impression back in America. He was in negotiation at the time that he made this film. He'd come off the back of a TV role in a movie called Longstreet, TV show Wade the Intercepting Fist, with James Franciscus, written by Sterling Silliphant, and he was in negotiations for what did become Kung Fu with Fred Weintraub. And so Bruce wanted this movie, to be as good as it possibly could be, and so took over his own choreography to give himself the best possible chance to prove himself to the American market. It's hard for us to imagine why he would need to do that now with Jackie Chan. The success of Jackie Chan worldwide has been phenomenal, and rightly so. But at this time, when Bruce was pioneering this genre of martial arts in Asian cinema, it really wasn't that widely seen in the West, other than in maybe Chinatowns throughout the world and specialist film clubs. So here we see Bruce being very restrained by his own standards. I think the choreography now has been taken over by Bruce. You can see the slight difference in the way that there are beats now to the movement. You can almost see that each move has an ending. There's a point to it. It's not just windmilling. And so Bruce has took over. See this?
It's more powerful.
POV shots, yeah. We've got close in, we've got cutaways. It just feels slightly more... he makes them look good, basically.
Yeah.
The scenes improve. Again, there's points to each of the beats. We can see a beginning, a middle and an end. And a bit of comedy there as well, which is typical of Bruce, as we'll see later on. And still, the audience are now bursting with tension. They've understood that Bruce Lee is probably a good martial artist, and now people are really starting to get interested. Is he going to fight? But sadly, not yet. The talisman still remains around his neck, and he fingers it and won't really make a move. And don't you just know it? Just like buses, one henchman comes along and then 32 follow him. So this is...
free for all.
Yeah. I remember this is the first time since Bruce's role in The Orphan in 1958 that people had seen him on the large screen in Asia, and he hadn't fought whatsoever in that film. And so people really didn't know what to expect. And Bruce had said to himself, in the American market, just give me a role, give me a platform, and I'll deliver the goods. And boy, did he do that in the next couple of scenes. So here we see the amulet or talisman ripped from his shirt, and now we see Bruce Lee for the first time as an adult in action cinema, and the first time anybody'd seen anything like this before or since, if we're honest.
And I think that's what everybody liked, was you saw all this scrabbling and stuff like that. Bruce actually just does a few moves.
A point of view shot, yeah, so you get the camera angle of the bodies on the floor, I imagine.
And Bruce just does a few moves, and he's knocked 3 out, and the rest of them are still standing. You know,
the original dub of this film was didn't feature any of Bruce's battle cards as Peter Chan Lung, as he was featured in Fist of Fury and later Enter the Dragon, and he plays a Thai in this movie, a very worthy stuntman, as he proves there, and became one of Bruce's trusted stunt team throughout the rest of his Hong Kong career. So we've got great subtlety there, reaction shots, Bruce holding the pose. I mean, it was quite dynamic for 1971. It's something we're quite used to seeing now. People have copied his style, their point of view again. Things that Bruce had thought about strongly while working on American TV. Overhead shots. And really superbly choreographed. The overdubs there have taken from other Bruce Lee's other films. That's Bruce didn't do any of his own overdubs for the fight scenes for this movie, so these have been added, probably taken from Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, possibly Enter the Dragon, depending on the rights for that. Remember, many of these stuntmen, it's the first time that they'd seen Bruce. They were one. Yam Ling Chin talks about Bruce Lee coming to the set. They'd been on set for a week before Bruce Lee arrived from Hong Kong. They really didn't know what to expect, and he really had to prove himself to them. These were tough individuals, most of them, and I think to see him in action in close quarters, they realised that he was and did what he said he could do. Here we see the broken amulet there, the talisman. You see Bruce's bandage there from the accident. Because it featured so strongly in these early scenes, he needed to wear some form of sticking plaster throughout for continuity reasons. So we get another plot device now where the manager tries to convince the Chen Chao-an character that all is well. And we get some more of Pink Floyd's background music there. Personally, slightly distracting, but...
I wonder if Pink Floyd know about it.
I'd rather not pursue that. We can't really criticise, because if you look at the early dubs of The Big Boss, there's music taken directly from the Sterling Sullivan vehicle in the heat of the night, Sidney Poitier, where the criminal runs across the bridge. The music used there was taken and used in The Big Boss. So I think everybody borrows at some point. No such thing as originality in music, sadly. It's the same three chords. As I said, it's a plot device to convince Chen Chao-an that all is well, and he becomes the foreman. And this kind of diverts attention away from the real crux of the matter, that four family members are no longer with us. One thing that people might not realise about Bruce is he wasn't the perfect specimen that many would have us believe. He was extremely short-sighted and wore contact lenses, something that he used to his advantage during the fight scenes in the movie. But I think he pretended to lose the contact while he got his bearings with the director, and he, believe it or not, had one leg shorter than the other, which gave him an unusual gait when kicking. And going to be indelicate, he had one undescended testicle, which meant that he was able to avoid the draft, set as 4F for the draft. He was a member of his university ROTC squad, so he did a slight military service.
I remember the photographs turned up after.
Yeah, the sergeant there tried to get him to do marching up and down and square bashing. Bruce told him if he ever spoke to him again, he'd knock him on his back. He didn't like the sergeant shouting at him. And we see the Marie character waiting for news of the four family members that are missing. And of course the Brotherhood here have all completely forgotten about that and are quite happy that Chen is now the foreman and all is well in the world.
It looks pretty run down, though. I mean, if you look at across the street when they come in.
A very generic location. You really wouldn't know that you were in historic areas of Thailand, and this, say, bordered the national park. I mean, at the time the Vietnam War was going on, we had American personnel bivouacking in the area for training, and they talk about tigers elephants roaming loose in the national park, which would have been an interesting point of view for Bruce to meet a tiger.
Tiger and the dragon.
So Chow Mei's curious as to why they're so happy. He's making all the wrong assumptions, sadly. And so now they're both sing about Chen's victory, how well he's done, and beating off the Thai henchman.
It's quite interesting there. I mean, the set's well put together. I don't know if it's borrowed a house or something like that, but it.
Well, I think that would be on location. Yeah, I think that'd be absolutely just
because
a dwelling that was on site. I mean, what we aren't absolutely certain of is whether this is Patchon or indeed Bangkok. We can't really know that for sure.
True. But the other thing is that this might have been a new thing because it's not a set-based movie. It's definitely all on location.
They did actually return to Hong Kong and do some interiors for the final day of shooting towards the early days of September. Most of the shoot took place to the latter to 1 week of July, all of August, and then into the first very early days of September before they returned back to Hong Kong.
But if you saw some kung fu movies prior, they were all set-based, you know what I mean? And it was...
Well, the next movie was Fist of Fury.
Yeah, Fist of Fury was definitely set-based, with a few off-shots.
Bruce wrote at the time, the film I'm doing is quite amateur-like. New director Lo Wei, described as a fame lover, has replaced the uncertain old one. This new director is another so-and-so with an almost unbearable air of superiority. I don't think Bruce and Lo Wei hit it off, to say the least. I think the later scenes in the movie were what we describe as love scenes. Lo Wei was listening to Happy Valley Races on the transistor radio. He was a bit of a betting man, I believe. And so we are the following day, and Bruce trying to really smooth over the fact that they have no further information about Xu Shane and the rest of the family.
This is where we just saw one of the sort of like early things that came in was the kung fu sash, the sash that actually, epitomised the look. And in Kung Fu Monthly, he did the flying kick, the sash dangles down, and it's...
That was their logo, yeah, that's right.
I like to just say that, of course, Will Johnston did write quite a lot for the Kung Fu Monthly.
Oh yes, those were the days.
A bit like Bear did a few bits towards the end, didn't he?
That's right, Bear Logan followed my column, that's right. Bruce Lee around the world.
It's quite interesting here that you usually see a bottle of Hennessy. When I was in Hong Kong, I can't remember this wonderful sort of like, the drink must be brandy, God.
It's a French cognac, I believe. I mean, these days, I would be described as product placement. You'll often see, obviously I won't name any products, but you'd often see them in the background of shots. And the company would pay. I think in this era, I don't really think that was the case. I think it was purely that was where the bottle was set, and that's where the angle was filmed from.
No, but the Chinese did, when I was in Hong Kong, it was Hennessy all the time, I mean.
So it's a favourite drink.
Yeah, at that time. A typical Chinese sort of like banquet, it's round table. Maybe some rice wine and stuff like that.
We got our first look at the one of the Thai actresses that was brought in to cover some of the more, should I say, risque scenes in the movie. That's Mala Lin. Again, she was around 19 when she made this film, and brought in really purely and simply because she was willing to bear all for the role, unlike the Chinese actresses of the day, which it would have been unthinkable for them to have so much as showed more than a forearm, really.
Did you have a reason why they sort of filmed in Thailand?
I'm not sure. I don't think that was it. I think the location shooting was cheaper in Thailand, and I think that was just really an opportunity for them to employ the local actresses. We see Bruce the history of the character is actually based on a true story. Chen Chao-an fought tyrants in Thailand. Chen lived at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. Apparently a memorial statue of him was erected in Bangkok more than 80 years ago. But there's also a backstory that his father was a drunk, and this was supposed to be part of this script but didn't really come through, and so it really wasn't a good idea for Chen to be seen drinking. So he's really breaking all of the taboos in this scene, including some of his personal taboos. Bruce Lee didn't drink alcohol whatsoever. It was something he disliked the taste of, and neither did he smoke. But he did swear a lot.
No, yeah, he could swear. I used to like the dub bit where she says, "You put it away like a fish."
Here we see the manager really. It's the final scene we see this manager, even though he's guilty of most of the atrocities in the movie. He kind of escapes justice, and it's kind of the final time that we really get to see his character. So this is the
Again, this was quite good for the Chinese audience, because here you see a very poor, menial little meal, and yet Bruce is sat there around this wonderful banquet, you know what I mean? And it's definitely that change from, fantastic food to just getting through food.
So I see Bruce breaking boards. Boards do indeed hit back.
There's a bit of bamboo there, mate.
Absolutely.
Bruce here acting is superb. I mean, the people who said that Bruce, was it? I mean, I think some of the Hollywood people used to say, "Oh, Bruce is a kung fu fighter. He can't act," and stuff like that. Well, what's he doing here? I mean, I think the 18 films prior he'd done an awful lot of acting before he got to this bit.
Yeah, we got a close up of the rather smaller bandage, so we can assume this is an interior shot, probably shot back in Bangkok towards the end of the shoot when they returned from Patchon, and so the sticking plaster was deployed purely for continuity. Now this scene in the Mandarin version is slightly different. Bruce is fantasising over the character and then begins to think about his cousin. So again, slightly risque. But in the Mandarin cut, it does actually drop to a slightly more topless shot, not of the actress Marie Yi, but I think of this actress. So
oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Again, shown at the 1979 convention. Sadly, Mandarin prints no longer exist, other than possibly in the hands of one or two lucky collectors.
Music here is quite, fits the scene quite well, I think. But the Cantonese definitely fits the diet, the script much better than the appalling English dub.
But as I say, the actors were actually mouthing the Mandarin versions, trying to get the feeling for the Mandarin dub. So Chow Mei and Ah Kun just assuming that everything's going to be fine. Meanwhile, things are not fine, obviously. So this is one of Bruce Lee's few love scenes in any of his movies. I think one of the things that distinguishes Big Boss from his other films, in that he was prepared to go out on a limb on some of the actions that he made in the film, rather than the cool character that he plays in Enter the Dragon, or the bumbling character of Way the Dragon, the comic character, or the vicious character in Fist of Fury. He's kind of a bit more real in this film.
He talked quite a lot about it in the Ted Thomas interview, didn't he? Where he was saying that he wasn't fazed by the sexy scenes.
Well, during the premiere in October 1971 in Hong Kong, his wife Linda was present, and when she saw this scene, Bruce leaned across to her and said, "Fringe benefits." I'm not sure what she would have said back to him in private, but I'm assuming he got away with that. I mean, Bruce did say in letters back to Linda from Patchon that many of these interior scenes needed to be reshot back in Hong Kong, so it's possible these scenes were reshot either in Bangkok or back in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that this young lady sort of like tries to throws her amorous charms at Bruce, and Bruce is fast asleep.
And so we are the next morning, hangover in tow, mouth like a bird's cage. He realises the error of his ways. These scenes, the exteriors of these scenes were actually shot in a real bordello in Pachon, and prostitutes at the time working in the bordello were being paid 70 pat per service, and the film crew paid them 200 pat to really just keep out of the way and be background artists while this was shot. And here we see Bruce being caught literally with his pants down as he exits the bordello, and Chow Mei catches him.
Right, nice.
We get a rather comical exit from him.
Yeah.
One of the things that might not be apparent during the making of these films is that Bruce was very keen to let people like Fred Weintraub, who, as I say, was working on a script for the Kung Fu series, then known as The Warrior. Bruce sent him film reels from the rough cuts of The Big Boss. So it's very possible, actually, that Fred has one of the few remaining versions of the Mandarin print of this film. Here we see Cheng Chao-an trying to explain his, again, lack of knowledge of where the four cousins have disappeared to, failing miserably. Lam Chin-ying there on the left, sadly died of cancer recently. Had great success in the Bruce Lee films as a stuntman and in the Mr. Vampire series. Tony Au there with Lee Kwan turning the backs literally and figuratively on the Chen Chao-an character. I think quite subtle acting here, wouldn't you say?
I like that bit. It's something there that you see quite often is Bruce, his arm out. Again, he does that in several of his movies, that sort of like, hang on, let me tell you, and it's a Chinese thing as well, like the wiping of the nose is a definite Chinese move. Used on a lot of kung fu movies, but Bruce used all those things.
Yeah, but Bruce here tried to assert his authority as the new foreman. I think really the cousins are angry and hurt with him.
I always like the trousers that Bruce had on there. They're really shiny kung fu pants. They really. I think he'd be able to do the moves a lot easier in those.
I think that would be it, really. So he tries to convince the manager of more information about where Xu Shen has gone. Really not happy with the answers that he gets.
One thing that I always impressed with you, Will, is that you'll always be able to tell what era Bruce is from his hairstyle. It's something that you showed me to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, obviously,
and I think
and you chair the choreographer of the film and also the main protagonist as Sammy, or the boss, warning Lao Wing, or Tony Lu's, as you pointed out earlier, was in all of the Bruce Lee films. He was a major character in Fist of Fury, Tony in Way of the Dragon, and he was kind of a sub-character in Enter the Dragon. He was the guy that
John Saxon in the script that I was looking at.
Kelly made bets, and this is Peter Chanlun. It's one of Bruce's main stunt team guys. He worked with Bruce throughout the rest of his career, and features heavily in Fist of Fury, and certainly in Enter the Dragon he's just about every other guy that's beaten up in the cave scene is Peter Chan, if you look very carefully. It's the good long shot of the mausoleum area, the funeral home as it were, and we see Bruce get attacked by a series of German Shepherd Alsatians as they're known in Europe. And Bruce owned this breed as a child. He had a dog, Alsatian or German Shepherd, called Bobby. And when he moved to Cumberland Road in Hong Kong as a star, as it were, he again brought the breed back into the family. He also was given a dog by Steve McQueen, Schnauzer, that he called Riff, short for terrific.
I don't know if these scenes would have been allowed by the animal rights people these days when you're throwing dogs at, at Bruce.
Point. No dogs were harmed in the making of these scenes, folks. Other breeds are available.
Yeah, I don't think I want to throw a Dalsatian. Thank you very much. I don't think some of them.
Actually, the dog trainers for this scene were located recently by a documentary team for Dragons since 1973. Although I must say the chap they interviewed did look very young to have filmed these scenes 35 years ago. But there we go. You see the long shot now as we walk through the mausoleum entrance. And down the corridor, you can see they're unable to do a long trolley shot like this in the Hong Kong 1971. Really was a built-up area, quite palatial.
Yeah, I think when you're watching something of this quality, you can now start looking around at the surroundings, at the set that they've been using. When you were looking at the old prints where they were, shot to death and out of focus, you just concentrated on the action and what was going on. Now you're actually admiring what's actually going on.
Well, here the Han Ying-gip character is trying to convince Bruce of his relative fondness for his workers and his care and attention to their every need. And basically fails miserably in the next scene. There he is smoking from his I'm assuming it's not an opium pipe, but I really wouldn't like to make any guesses at this stage. I'm sure I need the servant girl coming to deliver the yam cha, tea there, and of course she stumbles and he blows hot ash into her breast. Not a nice thing to do, but kind of gives the Bruce Lee character Chen Chao-an a chance to really understand just what lies beneath the surface. So it's quite a good plot device to give Chen Chao-an the doubts he needs, and the little show that's been put on for his benefit really has failed in that just one move. Now we see the bandage there, quite heavily featured. So again, this would be an earlier scene from the movie. It would have been shot, they all shot out of order, obviously, and this would have been shot in the earlier period. And just Chen Chao-an buying none of this. Unlike Xu Xian, doesn't make any grand announcements or challenges at this stage. He's really gathering evidence.
It's quite interesting on the expression on Bruce's face that, oh, right, as though I'm taking it all in and whatever he's saying is absolute gospel,
As I say, with film acting, a lot goes on behind the eyes, and I think Bruce, even in this dubbed version for a European audience, we can still understand very much the type of emotion that's going through his mind. It's not a very blank style of acting that he's got. It's really quite emotional. I think something he learnt really in his early career and in American television. So he's a bit of a show put on by Lau Wing and Han Ying-gip for the Chen Chao-an character's benefit, but really he's just not buying it, and he makes his excuses and leaves. Han Ying-gip there, born in 1927 in Shantung, same area as Jackie Chan.
Again, from this movie and onwards, the kung fu craze, the desperate need to have a kung fu jacket, and especially the colour that Bruce wore in, say, Enter the Dragon, and then in, any of the films. You went to Hong Kong and you had to buy a kung fu jacket, These days, if you go to Hong Kong, you wear a kung fu jacket, you stand out like a sore thumb.
And you get there doubled a matinee idol from the early 60s called Lin Dai. And then gradually moved into his own acting career.
Again, like the talisman, if you look at the chain there, there's a small jade lucky charm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, it's a classic Chinese thing to do, is to have the lucky charm around the neck, usually on gold.
So things really do go from bad to worse now for the Chen Chao-an character. He's trying to convince his cousins of his that he has their best intentions at heart, and really getting nowhere with them. I say the Li Quan character there, just ignoring him, charmingly playing with his toes.
Yeah, that's a classic thing of, sort of like sending somebody to Coventry,
Just wish he hadn't sniffed his fingers.
No, but
not
I think
nice.
No, he's sort of making out that there's a bad smell around and maybe it's not his feet.
Well, this iconic shot here of Bruce sitting down to eat the rice, delivered by Marie Yi, Actually, it was one of the few shots that featured in the West from this movie. In the early editions of Black Belt, when Bruce reported back to his longtime friend Mito Yahara, the publisher of Black Belt from that era, and Bruce used to write various articles at the time. Liberate Yourself from Classical Karate was one that he wrote in this period. And he'd occasionally report back from the sets of his films saying how he's getting on and send them a print, and that shot there of Marie and Bruce looking up was featured in black and white in the Black Belt. It's a great acting rapport here between Bruce as Chen Chao-an and Lee Kwan as Ah-kun. You get the emotion there between the two characters. Quite a lot of bitterness and recrimination there that, as I say, comes across quite well. Quite well acted between them both. Very little needs to be said. You just get the look from their faces there.
Again, Bruce using his face, these facial features that went on to a lot of movies, but Big Boss was definitely the early working of this. And
I think he really let go in the Big Boss. I think he drew in his acting style slightly in the later films. I think the label of star wasn't attached to him, and I'm not sure that's something he was comfortable with. Yeah. But here he was really going all out to show that he could both act and fight on screen, and I think he did both very well in the Big Boss. Yeah,
that's the expression, that sort of like same expression they used at the beginning of Fist of Fury when the interpreter's giving him a lot of stick.
They were great friends off set. I mean, Ah-kun.
Yeah.
Lee Kwan met Bruce at the Kai Tak airport for the press conference when they came back to Hong Kong, and some great friendly shots there with Lee Kwan wearing huge sunglasses. Here we were back at the Moon River, the rapids there. Chow Mei trying to smooth the waters, as it were, with the Chen Chao-an character.
It's a nice tracking shot, is this? If you're thinking, what the terrain is like.
That's right.
And there must have been no sort of like Steadicam or anything like that. It's really good.
No, they did use a crane device. I think
did they use a crane device?
Some of the foreground shots, the behind the scenes. So they went entirely without equipment. There's the standard shot that was used in Golden Harvest films of the time. Here we see Bruce's second visit to the bordello. It does indeed make a third visit, as we'll discuss later in the movie, but this is his second time, followed discreetly by the Lao Wing character, I say, over makes a decision this time to question one of the prostitutes.
In the pan and scan, you didn't see Tony as Lao Wing as easy as you did then. You know what I mean? You totally missed a lot of this when you were just on a pan and scan.
Yeah, I think it's possible subtlety would be lost unless you're in this widescreen version. Some great night shot there. I mean, some great use of shadow there as Bruce ascends the stairs. And there we see the actress in the foreground in the orange dress. She's the prostitute Bruce visits in the finale of the movie for his conquest, I imagine, as he faces certain death.
His last fling.
Yeah, you could put it that way, I imagine. This time he has more pressing matters in finding out where his cousins have gone, but not immediately obvious by his body language there, I must admit. So it's our last chance for the Thai actress Madeline playing Woman, or Woman, I suppose. Bruce really just wants to know more about what's gone on. And Madeline manages to convince Chen the evil nature of Sammy, not that he just hasn't already realised, having visited the boss at his mansion.
Does Brother Bruce ever mention the weather while he's in his talks? Because it seems to have been, you don't see any rain in this sort of film at all. It's all hot and humid, I presume.
I think they did have monsoon rain towards the end of the shoot when they were back in Bangkok, but I think they were quite fortunate, other than the final days of the shoot in Pachon. Although it was very hot, the mosquitoes were extensive.
Oof.
So here we see Madeline confirming to Bruce that Sammy was indeed capable of great evil.
He seems a bit of a sadist, really. I mean,
Here we get an odd shot there where we get what's called a false reverse, where the character comes in from the right of screen, then appears to throw a knife into the chest of Madeline from the opposite angle. It's called breaking the line, crossing the line in camera grammar. But I imagine Hitchcock would have done this better, but Lowe did his best.
Yeah, how the hell did he throw that knife?
And this is the third act really now, where things kind of change gear and the Chalmers character is kidnapped, and the rest of the family face a much worse fate. Meanwhile, Chen, in this very iconic scene, I mean, this scene now, as we see Bruce's eyes come into shot in close-up, was used extensively in retakes for cutaways in films like The Game of Death, exploitation movie of '78, where they really needed Bruce in close-up for various scenes to convince people he was in the extended scenes, and so that was one that was always used. But here we see Bruce now returning under cover of night to make examination of really what's gone on in this factory. As luck would have it, there's a very well locked door, but a nice big hole in the wall.
That's what would you do without the hole in the wall?
Absolutely. Crime prevention.
There you go.
Thailand style.
And he never shivers, you know. He never shivers when he goes in there. No, it's a nice factory.
Red light means danger, so a nice subconscious warning there that something is amiss. And Bruce is not too sure what he's about to find, but as we are going to discover that it's various body parts of his family in the ice, along strangely enough with the body of the Thai actress Malalyn, who was very quickly
frozen, yeah.
Dropped into the
quick
ice.
freeze.
Here Bruce finds one of the packets and tastes it. I'm hoping it was sherbet that was inside that. Otherwise Bruce might turn up at a sit-in somewhere rather than doing his film. Very popular of films of this period, the Drug Connection, as I say, the Gene Hackman vehicle, the French Connection, which is what this film was about to be titled as the Chinese Connection, based on the success of that film. And obviously some of the body parts, these were very graphic in the Mandarin version. Here they're very slightly hawky, not really quite work as an effect. It looks like something out of a store window display, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. It looks like dummies putting
a shoe shine there. We get the feeling.
Yeah.
From what's gone on there. Now Bruce is discovered by the Lao Wing, boss's son, and here we get one of the major talking points of the big boss. Not made for the European or even the Western market, it was made for the Chinese market, so it was really quite graphically violent with the use of blood. And in one scene in this particular fight, Bruce sinks a 16-inch saw blade into the head of one of the opponents. We don't really quite see him there. He's visible there behind Peter Chan there in the light blue. Just on the right there, that guy in the dark navy. But it was cut from every print except the early Mandarin prints. Well, it's still quite graphic. I mean, the extension views of the knife and the held shot there. This blood spurting was cut from the early European prints.
Yeah. And
Bruce throws a knife as well. You see him do a very early duck there, but other than that, it works. And that throw, that was definitely cut from the European prints. And there's the guy in the middle there, 1, 2, 3 in from the right. He gets a saw in the head, but again, we won't see that other than in a Mandarin print.
But you can start seeing the saw soon, can't you?
That's it, he steps on it now, so he's aware of it. There's usually everything to hand, all implements, and he brings it down on his head now. And then we carry on to the cut with Peter Chan there, and then Chan goes through the wall. Dan and Santo described this really as Bruce really displaying their group fighting. How would anybody be able to take on a group of people? And Bruce really had the opinion that if you take out the first person in an extremely vicious fashion, it intimidates the rest of the opponents. And so that's something that Bruce does. Because Bruce himself said that more than 3 opponents was really something in reality that would be difficult to imagine. Many of these scenes were cut even in recent prints. BBFC in Britain restored many of these scenes in the year 2000, but most of this fight was cut heavily. There's a scene where Bruce grabs this foreman in the groin, as we see there, and this was cut for at least 30 years. Quite humorous really, but and that scene was cut as well in the European print. Had to see why really now. Here we see a little bit of wire work with the knives here, reverse shot, the knives placed into the wood and then reverse angle there. And a bit of hawky there. This went down well with the Chinese audience. I think you described it as cartoon-like.
Yeah, it's cartoon-like. They like the comic strip stuff.
It's a bit of fun. I don't think the Western audiences really took to it, but Bruce never intended this film to be seen in the West. It was something that he couldn't really have imagined. As far as he was concerned, it was Chinese audiences only, and he would have returned to America to make films like Enter the Dragon.
Well, the low-wage Jackie Chan movies, I mean, you don't see them around.
No, that blood tasting there that Bruce did was something, a device that he'd picked up off one of his students, which was a fable of a bar brawl with Larry Hartzell, and to freak out his opponent, he tasted his blood, and Bruce thought that was quite amusing, and so he kind of adopted that as a signature in the rest of his films. So it's something he does quite regularly in the movie Enter the Dragon, even, where he'll taste his own blood. The intensity here of the taking of Lau Wing's life is really remarkable. It's a great bit of physical acting. You just see him trap Wing Chun style, trap the arm of Lau Wing, and then just this second punch now, you see Bruce murmuring absolute hatred. Just very, very well acted. Fist of Fury, as they say. So the
Chinese audience just went to town on that. It's just, you've got a new hero here, and it must have been electric when the premiere was on.
And Bruce Lee arrived, absolutely. Now we see some great physical acting now of the kind of the adrenaline rush coming down, and
you see that same thing in the end of Game of Death. When he's coming down the tower, you see that same
the stairs. That's quite right.
Descend the stairs. Is that
absolutely
exhaustion?
And again, we get this wordless acting from Bruce Lee, where he's nobody else to play off. He's just purely on screen, and he somehow has to convey all the feelings that he's having. Looking at his face, he realises that he's broken the vow he made to his mother, the filial shui, piety there, and also the fact that he's murdered somebody, so he took a human life. You can just see all these emotions crossing his mind, and little does he know what's to come. And just really quite well acted by Bruce, and also, it has to be said, well filmed by Lo Wei in the way that it's lit.
I think there's a little bit of a myth that in this movie that Bruce hated Lo Wei. I don't see this. I don't see this at all.
Yeah, he came to admire him to a certain extent in terms of the way the film was finally cut together. I think the later antagonism was something that was generated following the second movie, Fist of Fury. Here, Bruce finds the bodies of his relatives, and this was really quite graphic in the Mandarin version, but blood's very, very red. I'm not an expert on blood, but
I think it's very, very thick.
I do believe that part of the financial bill for these films went towards buckets of blood, but I'm not sure if that was true of the Big Boss. I think it was more of a Shaw Brothers.
I always like when Bruce was saying, there had to be a reason for all the blood and the sex, as he did.
Why do I start fighting?
Yeah, why do I start fighting? He wasn't going to just do it. Oh, right.
Now he's concerned that Chow Mei is missing.
It's a great leap, that. Straight over, no problem, and then that wild running,
As I said, one of the few children in a Bruce Lee film, and it's some quite intensive acting there from Bruce.
It's all building up now, and it's basically his emotions and everything else is running wild, and I think we're moving up now to his friend. I
think Bruce's training as a child actor really helps him convey this emotion. Anybody who's witnessed his performance in later films like Thunderstorm and The Orphan recognise him as a really quite emotional actor.
In Orphan's Tragedy, he has an awful lot of theatrical acting and Chinese theatrical acting.
You might remember this scene. This is when he finds the Ah Kun character, Lee Kwan.
Yeah,
and that was used as a poster for the original British fan club, the Bruce Lee fan club, run by Rona McVeigh and our very own Pamela Haddon, sadly deceased. And Rona passed the reins to Pamela, and became the Bruce Lee Society, and KFM magazine.
Yeah.
And later that was passed to yourself, Andrew, Bruce Lee Club, and then to myself and Greg Rhodes as the BBLA, which leads us to today. So we see Bruce now back at the Mun River, and really contemplating the outcome of everything that's happened so far. He really making a decision now based on the age of his mother. She's 70. Does he commit to further mayhem, or does he flee the country and let the deaths of his family go unavenged? That was quite a difficult decision for the character.
I think the words here in the dub version, well, you know, and even the little kid, you know, I mean, it really sinks home. His emotions are. He's ready to, you know.
At this point, he believes the Chow Mei character has been killed as well. So she's actually seen in a cutaway shot here of the family. Thinks all of that family are now dead. Although Chow Mei did survive, as we'll see. Well, that's probably a spoiler for the plot for many. Apologies to those who haven't seen this movie before. And then we see the band is quite heavy there. So again, this scene strangely would have been filmed earlier on in the shooting order.
See, the heavy-duty knife, I mean, it's the only film where the knife is involved.
So he throws away his worldly goods, makes the decision that he's going to avenge the deaths. Now, as we see him run in this next scene, he would actually then visit the bordello for the third time, and the actress we saw earlier in Orange, there would be a very brief nude scene between herself and Bruce Lee. It's all very tastefully done. We don't see anything untoward, but Bruce is indeed naked in the shot, and I think he picks up a packet of rice crackers, doesn't he, or corn crackers from the bedside table as he leaves the prostitute. So that's why we see him now gaily eating a set of rice crackers, and he does a mattress jump. Yuan, or Yung Hwa, was the athlete that did Bruce's doubles for mattress leagues. He tended not to do them himself. In actual fact, this finale scene was done in the last 3 days of the shoot in Patchon, and Bruce did a mattress jump and actually turned his ankle, and so dragged the leg for the remainder of this fight in the final scenes. So they had to put in a device where Bruce is stabbed to show why he drags the leg. So this is a very iconic scene. This was shown in Britain on TV, a TV show called Cinema 1971 with Brian Truman, and they showed the clip of Bruce, and we've just seen jumping the gate and this initial fight with the Thai henchman. And also, I think that same evening they showed a clip from Billy Jack with Tom Laughlin.
Oh yeah.
So it was really announcing the martial arts genre in the early 70s, which in the West we hadn't really been aware of, other than, I don't know, some of the judo of the 1960s films. So again, a plot device, I think. Then you could describe Eastwood's cigar, or John Wayne's gun. It's a prop, really, but tremendously well done. Then his final nibble before he faces death. A great use of knives in this scene. I think Bruce was a great admirer of the Japanese swordsman movies. He'd viewed the Chinese films from this period and wasn't really that impressed with the windmilling of the arms and the great use of wire work, but he thought the Japanese movies of the time were really quite well shot and cleverly cut, and so he's adopted some of those techniques here. And many of these scenes were cut for the European prints until about 2000. That some of this scene was cut, so it's quite inexplicable why people were lying around the lawn area when we hadn't seen them be hit. There's an over the back shot here. Bruce throws the knife into the final henchman's chest. This was definitely cut and now restored for this version. Now here was a kind of symbolism now of Bruce freeing his peers, if you like. Sammy's cage bird, and Bruce frees it from its shackles.
Yeah, I noticed that there was 2 birds in there at one point.
Continuity nightmare.
2 birds in the cage.
So here we've got Bruce Lee at 31. He was born in 1940. This is 1971, facing off against Ian Gipp at 44. I think he quit himself quite well, really, against his younger opponent, although the choreography for this was definitely all Bruce Lee, as you can see. compared to the early choreography by Han Ying-gip himself. He does acquit himself very well here.
I think Bruce is definitely using the fencing shuffle forward quite an awful lot.
Closing the gap, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. He's used it about 5 times in this movie. I was speaking to Larry and he said, Bruce's arms, his forearms were like Popeye's arms.
Bruce wrote to Linda, after I stay early tonight, big fight scene coming up. Man, I'm tired from all the kicking and punching. So he wasn't really looking forward to this, but he does really get into it in a big way.
Plenty of pack, pack sow there and double pack, and he's definitely letting some of the Wing Chun come out at the same time as fitting it into a choreographed fighting style.
Due to these cuts that were made in the film, it led to the UK becoming one of the most vibrant markets for Bruce Lee outside of Japan. Recently, some cut movies has kind of tamed some of this early sort of eagerness among fans, I think. And be careful what you wish for. It's interesting in Bruce's films that he always had a foreign opponent. And technically, the Thai and the Japanese in Mr. Fury and the Italian Mafia in Way of the Dragon. All from one long shot there. It was quite difficult for Bruce with his sore back. He had to rest heavily. And one of these leaps, he actually turned his ankle. He wrote, "I've gone through 2 days of hell. I sprained my ankle rather badly from a high jump on a slip mattress." And that's an iconic scene. That was cut from the European prints.
It's kind of the similar scene that you see in Enter the Dragon with
very much, yeah. So Bruce would have to drag his leg for much of the rest of this fight now, and so they put a plot device in where Sammy will slash him across the thigh, and that will explain why the leg is being dragged. We get this inexplicable cutaway now in the markets of Hong Kong from this period. Anybody found to have committed a crime really should be punished for the crime. And so this is really a device that allows Chow Mei to escape and call the police so that Bruce's character Chen Chao-an is arrested for his crimes of murder, which would appease the censors in Hong Kong at the time. So it seems inexplicable to break the action, but some way for the police to arrive at the scene. And so now we're back to the closing parts of this fight.
It must have been difficult with his shirt hanging down there, because it several times you can see him stand on the shirt, so
really
it might have been a little bit difficult for him to get some of the moves up.
No, he's got rid of one knife, and
you can see definitely dragging the leg.
Oh yeah, he was in quite a lot of pain. There's a reverse shot there of him pulling away from his face, and there we see the device for the dragged leg. So this explains everything that Bruce does from here on in, really. We tend to see him in close up now, very, very few long shots. A bit of grappling there, so.
Yeah, there's some nice photographs of this sort of like foot grappling there.
Not on the set though, are they? It seems to be a different location, got trees in the background.
Yeah.
This is quite intense. Some great, again, physical acting from Bruce. Really conveys that kind of feeling, and from Han Ying-gip as well.
Yeah. Similar to the Bob Baker fight, when they're on the ground.
We get another reverse wire shot of the knife. Again, something Bruce would go along with and not really enjoy. And then we get some quite 5 fingers of death here. She's definitely cut in the in the European print. You'd never have seen this until quite recently. Quite gruesome, to be perfectly honest. And then this kind of lose the light there. You see the knife sticking out the body there, and one punch for every family member there. And that's pretty much Chen Chao-an having avenged everybody. And pretty soon the Thai police arrive and rescue the day, as it were. So justice then seemed to be done as Chen's arrested for taking the law into his own hands. Now at the premiere, where Bruce was sat watching this in October of 1971, there was absolute silence at this point. You could have heard a pin drop. Bruce was sat with Linda and Raymond Chow, and he said, let's go, let's leave early before there's a riot. Because these last seats, they look like a movie.
Yeah.
And he said after 2 minutes, all of a sudden, the place just erupted.
Yeah.
It was shown in Dragon. There was a
reconstruction, yeah.
Reconstruction of that in Dragon. Probably slightly over the top.
Yeah.
They've been carried aloft, but he certainly went on to become the most successful film of that period prior to subsequently from The Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Which had made $6.5 million Hong Kong dollars, and this one broke that record, as did Fist of Fury and then Way of the Dragon. So Bruce was quite consistent in his success, and went on to become a film icon. And the reason we're all sitting here now is his legacy lives on, and this is Will Johnston signing off, and happy to share some of Bruce's legacy with you. His first ever movie, and dedicate this one to my new granddaughter Olivia.
And Andrew Staton, and just want to say this was the making of what we now know as the King of Kung Fu. It's been a pleasure to talk to Will Johnston, and we hope you've enjoyed this commentary. Thank you.
Thank you.